to promise that Gaza will no longer pose a threat on our country. In the war of resurrection, we are making it clear to our enemies and to the whole world that when the people of Israel stand together, there's nothing that can break us. I'm proud to be the Prime Minister of our wonderful nation, and I'm proud to lead our country. At such times, the cabinet and the government have approved the outline for bringing back our hostages. It is one of the goals of the war, and we will remain relentless until it is completed. The holy mission of releasing the hostages, this holy mission has been with me my entire life, since my service as an IDF combat soldier and throughout my years as Prime Minister of Israel. And together with you, citizens of Israel, and together with many others in the world, my wife Sarah and myself, we are praying, we are hoping, we are doing everything we can for the release of all of our hostages. I'm constantly thinking about them. My wife, Sarah, pours her heart and soul with the concern to the hostages and those who have returned. And she works relentlessly, both in Israel and overseas. And I know that this concern is shared by all families in Israel. And I promise you, we will accomplish all the goals of the war, and we will bring them all home. Until now, we've managed to bring back 157 hostages. Out of them, 117 were alive. In the deal and the agreement just agreed about recently, we will bring back another 33 of our brothers and sisters, most of them alive. And this outcome is first and foremost the outcome of the heroism of our soldiers in combat. It's also an outcome on how we stood firmly on our goals and interest, and withstanding heavy pressures both domestically and from the outside. It is an outcome of the cooperation between Israel and the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration. Since he was elected, Trump was completely committed to the release of the hostages. We spoke on Wednesday. He congratulated me on the agreement, and he emphasized, and rightly so, that the first stage is a temporary ceasefire. This is what he said, a temporary ceasefire. Towards the next stages of the agreement, we are holding on to some significant assets so that we can bring back all of the hostages, and in order to accomplish all the goals of the war. Both President Trump and President Biden have provided full backing to Israel's right to resume fighting, to resume combat, if Israel reaches the conclusion that the negotiations over the second stage are pointless. I truly appreciate that. I also appreciate the decision of President Trump to lift all the remaining restrictions on the providing of essential munitions and weapons to the State of Israel. If we need to resume combat, we will do so in new ways, and we will do so with tremendous force. During the negotiations, I set some basic principles, some ground rules. The first principle is maintaining the ability to resume fighting in case it's necessary. For very long months, Hamas has demanded that we will promise from the outset in advance that we put an end to the war as a condition for the release of hostages. There were other things they tried to dictate, but I adamantly objected to these, and my position was accepted. We maintain our right to resume the war, if necessary, with the backing of the U.S. And all senior officials of the American administration have all testified, have all said that it is the Hamas who provided obstacles to the negotiations. It was the Hamas that created these obstacles, not Israel. The second principle is very important, a significant increase in the number of live hostages who will be returning already in the first stage. And I'm very happy to tell you that this insistence bore some fruit. In contrast to the position of Hamas in May, we almost doubled the number of live hostages who are supposed to be released in the first stage. And the third principle maintaining the Philadelphia corridor and the security buffer zone. And I'm talking, when I talk about the Philadelphia corridor, not only we will not diminish our forces, we'll even increase them. And that's in contrast to everything I hear outside. We promised in the agreement that Israel will maintain full control over the Philadelphia corridor and the security buffer zone, which surround the entire Gaza Strip. Our forces will be deployed inside the Gaza Strip and will close in from every direction. We will not allow them to smuggle in means of warfare or smuggle out our hostages. We also determined that terrorists who had murdered will not go back to Judea and Samaria. And we also decided to significantly increase in the second stage our forces in Judea and Samaria in order to protect our citizens. Now, what caused this change in the position of Hamas? First of all, the fierce blows dealt by our brave soldiers on Hamas and our other enemies in the battlefield. And number two, that is our policy to strike our enemies in 7 fronts with such might and force that they never saw before. We managed to kill Sinwar and Hania, and we also killed the entire top echelon of Hezbollah, and we also provided an airstrike against the Houthis in Yemen, and we also significantly harmed the entire Iranian axis, and we are still have a lot of plans up our sleeves. I'm telling you, we have changed the face of the Middle East. And as a result of all that, Hamas is now beaten, isolated. They're isolated in the battlefield. And this is what led to the conditions that led to the change in their positions and the release of our hostages today. Hamas agrees to what they did not agree to in the past. Citizens of Israel, the war of resurrection demands of us some difficult decisions, but in these decisions, this is how a leadership is tested. These are decisions that take into account all of our national and security considerations. Unfortunately, I cannot elaborate on all of them right now. On October 7th, we suffered a very difficult blow. We experienced some terrible pain, but with joint forces, we managed to push back our enemies, and we've achieved some astounding results. The entire world, both enemies and friends, are in awe of these historic achievements. My dear fellow citizens of Israel, I see with excitement, with elation, how strong you all are. And I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank you for the trust and the backing you give to me and my colleagues to lead the state of Israel in such a fateful times. And I see our people at their very best, the IDF soldiers, both reservists and in regular military service, the police officers, the agents of Mossad and the Shin Bet and from the prison services and our volunteers, our entire nation. I see them in their full glory. In the heat of battle and under the horror of war, we embrace to our hearts with shared sorrow, with tremendous love and appreciation, those who have paid the dearest price, my brothers and sisters, part of the bereaved family, the family of all bereaved families. And we wish to embrace and console those who have been injured and those who have needed to evacuate their homes in the south and in the north. And we are committed to bringing them back home. I embrace all of you to my heart, and I say to you, the campaign is not over yet. We have a very long and challenging journey ahead of us. This is not the time to separate and to break apart. This is the time to unite and connect. And this is what our heritage demands of us. This is what the generation of victory demands of us. We are winning because the spirit inside us is winning. This is the spirit of an ancient